It's the 5150 breakdown. You know we don't mess around. We're coming straight to your town to bring you the 5150 breakdown. So get your mind right. Get your mind right. Get your mind right. Get your mind right.
And get ready for the 5150 breakdown.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kimberly Grace.
And I'm Shawna Charles, PhD candidate. And this is the 5150 breakdown.
On today's show, we're going to talk about borderline personality disorder and also give you some of the behaviors that are associated with borderline personality disorder. We are going to raise your awareness about borderline personality disorder because it's not as talked about as some of the other disorders such as depression or bipolar or anxiety disorders. And so we want to make sure you're aware of the behaviors that are associated with borderline personality disorder.
So as Dr. Grace said, we are going to discuss some of the behaviors that are exhibited in borderline personality disorder, such as impulsivity, lapse of judgment and poor judgment, overdosing, suicidal ideation, and suicidal gestures. A suicidal gesture is
maybe when they, have some pills and they're acting like they're going to take them all, or maybe they just take a lot of Tylenol, but they have people in their life thinking that they are going to commit suicide.
or constantly saying, I want to kill myself, I'm going to kill myself, I have my meds, or just even implying that you may do it.
So maybe they might grab a knife and say, I'm going to cut myself if you leave me, or something to that nature.
Some of the other behaviors also include being self-destructive, mutilating, cutting yourself, running up huge bills, shoplifting, gambling sprees, sexual acting out, addictive traits and patterns, drug misuse, abuse, and reckless driving, ambivalence, indecision, and procrastination. Now, Dr. Grace, we know that's a long list of behaviors to look for. What we wanted to do was share with you the behaviors that you would see in someone that has borderline personality disorder.
Yeah. So before we continue with the behaviors, so let's talk about some of the actual symptoms that would classify a person as having borderline personality disorder, because I think that's also important too. And then we can elaborate on some of the behaviors and then maybe give a case and talk about that a little bit more in detail. So I'm going to list some symptoms, and in order to be classified as having borderline personality disorder, you have to have at least 5 of these 9 symptoms. And the first one is a pattern of unstable, intense interpersonal relationships. And with this, you see not only this real idolizing somebody, but you also see devaluing a person as well. An unstable self-image or sense of self. Impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging. So Shawna had talked about some of those areas like the binge eating and the sex, but we're going to go back to that a little bit later. You also might see the recurrent suicidal behaviors or gestures. So the difference between suicide ideation is just the thought. So the person may be thinking, I might be better off dead, or I wish I was dead, or I want to die. And then the gesture might be them, grabbing a knife and saying, I'm going to kill myself if you leave, or grabbing a gun and saying the same thing, or maybe they show you a bottle of their pills and they say, I'm going to kill myself. That would be more of the gesture. The suicide ideation is more of the thoughts. Another symptom is changes or instability in the mood. So it could be irritability or anxiety that lasts between a couple of hours, but no more, or rarely no more than a couple of days. Chronic feeling of emptiness, inappropriate and intense anger, and also difficulty with controlling anger. And the last symptom is stress-related paranoid ideation. So those are the symptoms that are associated with borderline personality disorder. And like I said before, you have to have at least 5 of these symptoms in order to be classified as having borderline personality disorder.
So now that Dr. Grace and I have discussed the behaviors and the symptoms of borderline personality disorder, we're going to now go over a case of an individual who has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. so you all can see how it manifests in everyday life. Dr. Grace?
Yes. So with this case, let me say first that borderline personality disorder is not the only diagnosis that this person has. A lot of times with personality disorders, you also see other disorders like mood disorders, so depression. You also might see some anxiety. You might even see substance abuse disorders. So with this particular person, they had a mood disorder, and then they also was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
So Dr. Grace is going to discuss a case about Susan, a 35-year-old female who was recently laid off of her job and also admitted for a 72-hour hold. Dr. Grace?
So, a 72-hour hold, that means she had to be 5150 or involuntarily hospitalized due to being a danger to herself or to others. And in her case, it was due to being a danger to herself. What actually had her admitted to the hospital was when she was visiting her therapist. She took a bottle of pain pills with her, and she told her therapist that she was going to take the pain pills and that she wanted to die, and that, you know, she would be better off if she was dead. Everything would be okay if she just killed herself. And so after further assessment by her therapist, she was admitted to the hospital, and they kept her on a 72-hour hold. While she was at the hospital, she talked to another therapist there, and they found that she was fired from her job due to this spending habit that she had. She racked up $150,000 worth of debt on her employer's credit card.
Wow.
Yes. And the spending occurred because she felt this emptiness. The emptiness that I was talking about earlier, she felt that emptiness, and to try to combat with that feeling, she decided to go shopping. And so it was like an extreme form of retail therapy that was occurring. And so with her, talking about her background, you saw that she didn't really have a lot of stable relationships. She talked about the relationships, and at first she really loved the people that she was around, whether it was a boyfriend or a friend. And then eventually they didn't meet some type of need, so maybe they didn't call her right away, or maybe they were busy at one point, and she just absolutely could not control her anger. She felt this sense of complete abandonment and emptiness, and so she just went into this rage, and she would, push them away. Even though she really wanted to be close with them, she didn't know how to kind of be close with somebody but know that they have other things that are going on.
It was also noted that Susan was overweight due to binge eating, which is also another symptom of borderline personality disorder.
Another thing that was going on with Susan is she was having a lot of sex, a lot of reckless sex behaviors, such as, picking up random men and sleeping with them without protection, and she actually tried to make a connection with these people, but she couldn't maintain the relationship, and so she just was having sex with a lot of different people.
So Dr. Grace, she was looking for that intimacy to
Yes.
fill that emptiness. And when she couldn't feel that emptiness, she would shop or she would binge eat to help fill that void.
Mm-hmm. And so the other week we talked about dependent personality disorder. And so what I want to kind of bring your attention to is both of the personality disorders is marked by fears of abandonment. But with dependent personality disorder, when they have that fear, they try to do anything they can to stop the person from leaving. So with borderline personality disorder, when the person fears or feels that sense of abandonment, they don't try to, appease the person and make the person want to stay by being submissive. They just feel this overwhelming sense of emptiness. So that's the difference between the dependent personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. So when Susan came to the hospital, you really saw that she had that desire to want to be in a stable relationship, but she just didn't know how to do that. She didn't know how to be able to be in a healthy, loving relationship. She would have that push and pull characteristic going on, so she would really love the person and then really hate the person, which created the unstable relationships. which is a little surprising given her previous employment.
Right, because Susan was actually an insurance company executive. And as we can see, these symptoms played out throughout her life. They played out in her job, from her stealing the money from the company, as well as to her personal life, as trying to balance the relationships.
So with that, you can kind of see how borderline personality disorder can be more frequent in our lives than we think, or in our community than we think. And when people think about personality disorders, they may have a stereotypical person that they think about. But we're here to let you know that it crosses all lines: color lines, socioeconomic status, and gender lines. So with Susan, you're able to see that because she was a woman. She was an executive, she was in her mid-30s, and so she kind of was out the box of what people typically think of when they think about mental health disorders.
So, Dr. Grace, that ends the segment of us talking about borderline personality disorder. So, Dr. Grace and I hope that this was helpful with helping you understand the symptoms and the behaviors of borderline personality disorder. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email at 5150breakdown@gmail.com, or send us a message or a post on our Facebook page at 5150breakdown. And don't forget to consult your physician.
And now it's time for our 5 and 5. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. Our first question comes from Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it is, how do I know when I have the right therapist?
That's a great question, Dr. Grace. I believe you know when you have the right therapist when you find someone that you can trust, and also someone where you can share your deepest and darkest secrets, and also feel safe sharing it with them. And our next question comes from New Haven, Connecticut. Dr. Grace, what is the scariest part of therapy?
Wow. I think the scariest part is probably disclosing information to your therapist that you wouldn't normally tell people. So like you said, telling them your darkest secrets and then opening up some of those wounds. A lot of times, because we have so much that's going on in our lives, we can't attend to the things that have been hurtful because we just don't have the time to do that. And so in that therapy room, those wounds will open if you have the right therapist. And so that's the scariest part, I think, is kind of opening those wounds in order to deal with them and then eventually healing.
But that's the best part about it, Dr. Grace. Although you open up at some point and it feels painful, healing is the most important part of that process.
Yes. The next question comes from San Francisco, California, and it is, when should I go to therapy?
I believe the right time to go to therapy is when you have issues in your life that are starting to affect your life, or starting to affect different areas of your life, such as your occupation, school, your relationships. When those feelings become overwhelming and feel like a burden, and you start withdrawing, or you start seeing your emotions and your moods change, I think that is the right time to seek out a therapist.
Oh, you're good.
Our next question comes from Chicago, Illinois. Dr. Grace, the question is, I am hallucinating and I don't know what to do.
So first and foremost, let me start by saying, if you are having hallucinations, please contact your doctor, your therapist, or you can go to a medical doctor first. If you are having hallucinations and you have contacted your doctor, in the meantime, I would suggest asking yourself a couple of questions. First being, are you taking any substances? So have you been smoking any substances or taking any forms of substances? That includes alcohol. Secondly, I would ask yourself, are you supposed to be taking substances or medication? Are you supposed to be taking medication and you are not currently taking the medication? So maybe you have been diagnosed with schizophrenia and your doctor has suggested that you be on meds and has prescribed you with some medication, and you're not taking the medication now, and so maybe you're experiencing hallucinations. Another thing I would suggest you doing is maybe trying to keep a log of the hallucinations so that you can figure out what's the theme of the hallucinations, what's going on right before the hallucinations, and then what happens right before the hallucinations stop. So, most importantly, I would suggest you going to your doctor. But those other things can also be helpful so that when you meet with your doctor, you can have more information.
Excellent.
I know it can probably be a scary thing to have. And so if you have a support system, I will also suggest you contacting your support system so that they can help you through this difficult time.
Excellent, Dr. Grace.
Thank you. Our final question comes from Houston, Texas. And I thought this was an interesting question because we were talking about having guests on our show. And the question is, how can I be on the 5150 Breakdown Show?
Well, you can feel free to send us a message on our Facebook page at 5150 Breakdown, or send us an email at 5150breakdown@gmail.com.
And in that email or that post, tell us what show you would like to be on. So maybe give us a topic and let us know what you're interested in talking about on our show. Or go ahead and send us something you would like us to survey the community. That concludes our 5 and 5. Thank you so much for watching. And as we said before, if you have any more questions, please contact us at 5150breakdown@gmail.com or post on our Facebook page, 5150 Breakdown.
I'm Shawna Charles, PhD candidate.
And I'm Dr. Kimberly Grace.
And that was the 5150 Breakdown.
It's the 5150 Breakdown. You know we don't mess around. We're coming straight to your town to bring you the 5150 Breakdown. So get your mind right. Get your mind right. Get your mind right. Get your mind right. And get ready for the 5150 Breakdown.